ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ॐ त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव। ओम गुरुदेव भगवान शिव शंकर भोलेनाथ कैलाशपति महाराज की जय। भगवान व्यास जी महाराज की जय। शंकराचार्य भगवान की जय। स्वामी चिन्मयानंद भगवान की जय। स्वामी दयानंद भगवान की जय। स्वामी प्रबुधानंद भगवान की जय। स्वामी शुद्धानंद भगवान की जय। साध्वी आनंद ज्योति जी की जय। सभी गुरु देवताओं की जय। माता पिता की जय। सभी गुरु देवताओं की जय। श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा। श्री कृष्ण गोविंद हरे मुरारी हे नाथ नारायण वासुदेवा। Srimad Bhagavad Gita. We have completed 7th chapter. Now, summary of the first 7 chapters is the whole subject matter of Vedanta is covered by a statement. The entire Vedanta is covered by one statement. Tat Tvam Asi. Tat Tvam Asi. Tvam refers to the Jiva, the individual, and Tat refers to Ishvara. It denotes Ishvara, the Lord, and there is an equation between them. There is an equation between them. They appear two, but they are not two. And there is an equation between them which is revealed by Asi. Asi. Tat Tvam Asi. An equation does not reveal something that is going to happen later. There is nothing which is going to happen later. It reveals a fact that exists now. The fact is there in ignorance also. The Shastra does not say Tat Tvam Bhavishyasi. You will become that. No. You are that. While not understanding, you are. It says Tat Tvam Asi. You are that. It is an important fact to note. Once I say Tvam Asi, you are, an expectation is created as to what am I. The speaker has something to convey, something is expected. This akanksha, expectation, created by the statement Tvam Asi is fulfilled by the word Tat. Since that word Tat is a pronoun, it refers to something already. already explained in the Shastra. Tatpada was presented, Tatpada was presented as Satvastu, the existent reality, which is the cause of creation. Since Tatpada stands for Ishvara, in order to understand Tatattvamasi equation, the Tvam-pada has to be understood properly. In an equation, there are two things that are equated. The necessity for an equation is that one side of the equation seems to be different from the other. If one is totally different from other, there is no equation. If one is totally different from other, there is no equation. Only if they are same but not recognized, can there be an equation. If a chair is so told, you are wood, that of which the whole wooden world is made, the chair it's a heater here. If a chair is told, you are wood, that of which the whole wooden world is made, the chair has to understand this statement. Naturally, it has to die to the notion that it is just a chair. It has to acknowledge that it is wood in the form of chair. And it can be in the form of table too. The chair has to recognize this, and so it is given an equation. When there is a possibility of an equation, it means there is an already existent fact. Here too, this equation states an existent fact. The jiva happens to be Ishvara. To recognize this, what the Tvam-pada implies must be understood, and the nature of Ishvara must be understood. Only then can be the equation be understood. In the process of understanding the nature of Tvam-pada and the nature of Tatpada, the meaning of the equation is discovered. As a result of this inquiry, the discovery I am that take place. Inquiry of Tvam-pada. In the first 6 chapters of Gita, the subject matter is predominantly Atma. Atma, the Jiva. Arjuna was confused. And one who is subject to confusion is a Jiva, an individual, which is the meaning of the word Tvam. The first part of Gita is inquiry into Tvam-pada. The Gita is divided into 18 chapters. The first part is the first 6 chapters, then another 6 chapter, and then third 6 chapter. So the first part of 6th chapter, Shataka, explains about Tvam-pada. Tvam-pada. Chapter number 1, which is in the first chapter, it was shown that Arjuna was confused. It means that a jiva is subject to confusion. As soon as the jiva bhava comes the confusion. Arjuna was not an ordinary jiva, born a prince with the blessings of Indra. Arjuna was a man of great character and valor. In his day, he was invincible. Bhishma waited for Arjuna to fight, and Drona, his teacher, was anxious to see him fight. Arjuna, who was also highly accomplished in music and dance, found himself in a state of depression. What does it mean? An individual jiva, no matter what his or her accomplishments be, is subject to sorrow. This was presented in the first chapter. All jivas with n number of accomplishments are subject to sorrow. Even the richest person on the planet, even the richest and the most powerful person on the planet, and the one who is called the happiest is also subject to sorrow. This was presented in the first chapter. The status of jiva without knowledge is sorrowful. The jiva who is not in the process of studying Shastra is subject to sorrow. In chapter number 2, Arjuna's Purushartha Nishchaya, ascertainment of what is to be pursued in life, he found himself in a no-win situation. Exactly the situation where no one can discover what one really wants. If he is victorious, he loses those that are dear to him. If he does not gain victory, yet he is a loser. He is a loser. A jiva is a loser in all accomplishments, fulfilling all accomplishments. In this unenviable situation is born his desires to solve the problem of sorrow in a way that requires no further solution. Arjuna addressed the human problem. He did not address his topical problem, but saw fundamental problem of the human heart that needs to be addressed. To do so in the situation he was in, he needed support. And Krishna was the greatest support possible. Whenever you address a fundamental problem, you cannot do it alone. You do require a help. The subject matter here being what it is, you require not just support but a teacher. Arjuna finds Krishna a teacher. He finds in Krishna a teacher. The discovery of the human problem is the subject matter of Tvam Pada, the meaning of you. And seeking a solution is done by Jiva. The Tvam Pada Artha, as is finding a teacher and asking for this knowledge. Arjuna discovered the teacher in Krishna and surrendering to him asked him to teach. Shishyate ham sadhi mam tvam prapannam. Krishna accepts Arjuna as a student and teaches him immediately as though he was waiting for such a situation. He starts with the statement, Asocyan anavasochastvam. You are grieving over that which does not deserve grief. In Gita chapter 2 verse number 11. And he talks about Atma and how it is not subject to death at all. He says your conclusion about Atma is not true. It is not born, nor does it even die. It was never non-existent, nor will it be ever not be there. It is unborn, eternal, and so on. That is why we say, when somebody dies, when somebody leaves the form, we say, God bless him, eternal peace. But Atma is non-existent, nor will it ever not be there. It is unborn. It is eternal and so on. Na jayate mriyate yiva kadachit nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuva ajanitya and so on. Verse number 2, chapter number 2, verse number 20. Krishna talks about Atma in entirety right in the second chapter. It is the analysis of Tvampada. This is the whole style of teaching. The exposition of Tatpada comes and goes, but predominantly topic in the second chapter is analysis of Tvampada. Then Krishna gives Arjuna different argument as to why he must fight and how karma is not opposed to knowledge if it is backed by proper attitude. Why one must continue doing actions despite of he studying Shastra. One can continue both the things simultaneously. He can take on to the knowledge, studying knowledge, gaining knowledge, and he can take on to do his regular karmas. One thing I explain here is karma done out of desire to achieve something binds you. And karmas done as a sadhan for knowledge don't bind you. Very important to understand. In chapter 3, in the third chapter, Arjuna wanted to know whether to pursue self-knowledge. In response to Arjuna's question and the end of the second chapter, Krishna had described a wise man as one who is happy with himself without requiring any addition or subtraction. Arjuna's thinking now is that he should pursue with this wisdom. Since sannyasa is the lifestyle was available exclusively for this pursuit, Arjuna considered it as a possibility for himself. Yet Krishna was encouraging him to fight this battle. So Arjuna asked Krishna which was better, a life of karma or life of renunciation. In pursuit of self-knowledge, you seem to praise both of them. So please teach me again clearly. They must have different results because one seems to be life of activity and the other is life of non-activity. Both cannot have the same result. Action will produce result. That will necessarily bind me. It means I will continue in samsara. But sannyasa is supposed to deliver me from samsara. How can both be same? So Arjuna wanted to know in unequivocal terms what the mean of for moksha is, a life of karma yoga or life of sannyasa, and for whom is the life for karma yoga and sannyas for Ishvara or for the jiva. There is lot said about karma yoga in third chapter, but it was meant for jiva. That is predominant topic. Later in the fourth chapter, Krishna talked about knowledge again, having pointed out that it is not karma that is binding factor, but lack of attitude and knowledge. He then talked about real sannyasa. In chapter 4, sannyasa as a lifestyle is one, but sarva karma sannyasa, total renunciation by knowledge, is quite another. In the fourth chapter, Krishna unfolds this total renunciation of action which is possible only through knowledge. And for whom is this? It is for the jiva. The Lord says, I am always performing actions and yet I do not perform any action. The system of the four varnas was created by me. Understand me, the creator of that system, and yet as someone who is not a doer at all. Chaturvarnyam maya shashritam gunakarma vibhagasya tasya akratakam apimam vidhi akrataram avyayam. Even though he is very active, the Lord is released from karma because of this knowledge. In chapter 4, verse number 13, the Lord is released from karma because of his knowledge. Therefore, knowledge is required not for Ishvara but for Jiva. The one who is able to see actionlessness, which is the nature of Atma in every activity, and the one who sees action in inactivity, he alone sees. He is the most knowledgeable among men. He is the successful one who has accomplished all that has to be accomplished. Karmani akarma yasya pasyate अकर्माणि च कर्म यस बुद्धिमान मनुष्य स युक्त कृत्सन कर्म कृत. This is the 18th verse of chapter 4. Kritsan karma krit. If you think you are the karta, you perform action, even if it is refusal to act. It is the doership that is the kingpin of all actions. Therefore, the one who is able to see the absence of doership in the mindset, in the midst of activity, is the real sannyasi. Then he talked about in chapter 5, after talking about jnana karma sannyasa, renunciation of action through knowledge, Krishna talked about sannyasa again. Jnana sanithya sannyasi yo na devasti na kankasti. He is to be known as always a sannyasi. Who has neither aversion nor longing, ekam sankyam cha yogam cha yah pasyati sapasyati. The one who sees knowledge and karma yoga as same, he sees. Ekam sankyam cha yogam cha ya pashyati sapashyati. The one who sees knowledge and karma yoga as same, he sees. What he sees? He sees sanyasuta mahabaho dukkhamapatu mayogatah योग युक्तः मुनि ब्रह्म निचरेणादि गच्छति नचिरेण आगच्छति. संन्यासः तु महाबाहो दुःखम आपतुम अयोगतम योग युक्तः मुनि ब्रह्म निचरेण अधिगच्छति. Renunciation of action. Arjuna, the mighty armed, is difficult to accomplish without karma yoga, whereas one who is committed to life of karma yoga is capable of reasoning, gains Brahman quickly. By these words, Bhagavan shows the nature of knowledge in the 5th chapter. Gaining this knowledge, one becomes sannyasi, and in order to gain it, one takes a life of sannyasa. The nature of knowledge was again pointed out by the word sannyasa, and so the chapter was called Sannyasa Yoga. Again, for whom was this pointed out? For the jiva. There, Tvam Pad Artha, the nature of Atma, was talked about only for the jiva. Tad buddhaya, tad atmaha, tanishtaha, tat parayantaha gacchati apunarvartam jnana niruddhata khalmashaha. Those whose intellect is awake to that means Brahman, for whom the self is that Brahman again, who are committed only to that, only to Brahman, for whom the ultimate is Brahman, which is already accomplished, whose impurities have been destroyed by knowledge, they attain a state of which there is no return. These are then the nature of Pratyagatma. In chapter 6, Bhagavan says the main topic is dhyana, contemplation, in which Krishna tells how to sit, what exactly should one do, and what kind of lifestyle should one live, and so on. He says, Atmasamtam mana krutva na kinchit api chintayet, making the mind abide in the self. May one not think of anything else. He also says, Yukta ahara. He says, Yukta ahara viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmasu, yukta swapnavabodhasya, yogo bhavati dukkha. For one who is moderate in eating and other activities, who is mindful in all activities, and the one's sleeping and waking hours, for a person, meditation becomes the destroyer of sorrow. Thus, Krishna talked about what is necessary for a contemplative life, including the emotional life and attitude that constitute yoga, a mature lifestyle. The chapter ended with dhyana, contemplation of Pratyagatma. In contemplation, even though he mainly talked about Pratyagatma, he also brought in Ishvara. When he said Matchit Yukta Asit Mat Paraha, and so on. In these 6 chapters, the Jiva was presented as the seeker, the one who has to undergo changes, and it is the Jiva whose Atma was presented here mainly. This is Twampada Vichara, inquiry into the Twampada. Then from chapter 7 onwards, the whole teaching and the approach is different, because the inquiry into Ishvara, the Tatpada, begins and is discussed primarily. Inquiry into Tatpada begins. Summary of chapter 7. Here we shall briefly see the meaning of each verse of the 7th chapter. In verse number 1, Bhagavan says, the first verse began with Maya Shaktmanaha. Mayi means in me. Ishvara says, in me. So in the very first verse, Ishvara is brought in. He says, Partha Arjuna, with the mind committed to me by taking to to yoga and having surrendered to me, please listen to the way in which you will know me totally without any doubt. In second verse, he says, I will teach you without any omission this knowledge, along with immediate knowledge, knowing which there remains nothing else to be known here. Whatever paroksha, indirect knowledge you have, because Ishvara is involved here, I am going to convert it into aparoksha, immediate knowledge. All what is paroksha, Bhagavan says we will convert it into paroksha, immediate knowledge. He saw, we saw how Krishna present this knowledge in paroksha and also in an aparoksha form. Once this is known, there is nothing else to be known. In verse number 3, to encourage Arjuna, Krishna says, among thousands of people, a rare person makes an effort for moksha. Even among the seekers making effort, only rare person comes to know me in reality. In fourth verse, Krishna began talking about what he has promised. He divides everything into para and apara prakriti and begins with apara, describing the eightfold prakriti. In verse number 5 and 6, Bhagwan talks about apara prakriti and he points out the para in the second half of this. Para prakriti is consciousness, the very meaning of the word jiva, and is not a mere thought. That is indeed the yoni, the cause of everything. I am Chaitanya Atma, that is the cause of everything, from which everything comes, by which everything is sustained, and on to which everything goes. Then further in verse number 7, Bhagwan says, there is no other cause superior to me, and there is nothing besides me. There is no cause for me. In fact, there is nothing that is separate from me. The great canvas of this world is woven, has its being in me like the beads in the string. Then he says, I am the cause of all of them. The truth of everything, Ishvara is understood as paroksha. In verse number 8, Bhagwan starts by saying, I am the taste in the water, and then goes on in the detail talking about name and form and the very content of it. I am the material cause of everything. A thing is there only because of me. I am the very essence of everything. All the glories belong to me. In the sun and moon, I am the light that is there. I am the essence of the Veda, which is reduced to Om. I am the sound in space, and in the human being his strength. Further in verse number 9, Bhagwan continues, I am the sweet fragrance in the earth, and the brilliance and the heat in the fire. I am very life in all beings. I am the one because of whom the great ascetic is called ascetic, because I am in form of the result of all austerities and remain as his very austerity. In verse number 10, Bhagwan says, Partha, Arjuna, understand me as the one who is eternal seed from which all living beings come into being. I am the intellect of those that have the capacity to discriminate. I am the brilliance in the brilliant. Further, Bhagwan says, Arjuna, in the strong, I am the strength that is free from desire, like and dislikes and attachment. Even your desire is me as long as it is conformity with dharma, because dharma is me. In verse number 12, Bhagwan continues to talk about the indirect knowledge of Ishvara, the bhavas being born of Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna, and Tamo Guna are born only of me. Or here the word bhavas could mean the various thought process born of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. They exist in me, and I do not exist in them. I do not depend on them, but they depend entirely upon me. I give them very existence, and whatever features they have are me. They are all my glories. In verse number 13, Bhagwan says that even when this is so, people do not recognize me because they are deluded by three gunas, the Sattva-guna, Rajo-guna and Tamo-guna, and their products. In verse number 14, Bhagwan explains in detail, therefore, this Maya, which is the modification of three gunas which belong to me, is very difficult to cross. Deluded by the modifications of the mind, you are not able to recognize your identity with Ishvara. So, Arjuna, you have to go to a Mayavi magician. When you are under the spell of magic, you cannot see the trick. So you have to stand by the side of the magician and watch how he does it. Then you find that there is no magic at all. Therefore, Krishna says, I am that Mayavi, the magician. You come to my side, directly seek me under the spell of magic. You are seeker. If you know the magic, you find that there is no seeking. Therefore, those who seek me directly cross over this Maya. Bhagwan says that people do not seek me because they are given to lifestyles that do not even allow them to think. There are even devotees who do not come to me. Although they are devotees, they do not seek me directly, only few seek. In 16th verse, Bhagwan describes the four types of devotees: an artha devotee, devotee in distress; an artharthi is a devotee both when he is in distress and when he wants something for the sake of accomplishment and accomplishment that end. He seeks my help. Then there is a Jigyasu who is interested in the very truth of Ishvara. He wants to know what Ishvara is. The last, of course, is Jnani. He is a devotee. A successful Jigyasu is a Jnani. In verse number 18, Bhagwan said, all of them are my devotees and are great. Yet the Jnani is myself, says Krishna in the 18th verse. He becomes one with me. Now is this indirect or direct knowledge. It is here Krishna converts it aparoksha jnana, direct knowledge. He went on saying, I am the strength in the strong, and so on. Now he says, you can say the same. You are everything. This is what is meant by Vijnana in the second verse of this chapter. Here Krishna says that after number of birth, the one who has knowledge gains me, and such a Mahatma is not easy to find. After number of birth means that when one comes to study Gita, a number of births have already been taken care of, but it does not mean that one gains knowledge only after number of births after coming to Gita. Bhagwan further says in verse number 20, Krishna, here that people go to other devatas because they do not recognize me at all. They are arthas or artharthis, and I establish their shraddha. In verse number 21 and 22, Bhagwan says, here he says, such a person endowed with shraddha gains the result of his karma obtained by me. In verse 23, Krishna comes to point all the result are antavat. Antavat means limited and finite. They are not infinite, they are finite. If devotees are only invoking deities, they get very limited result. But if they seek me, they become me. In verse number 24, he says, those who lack discrimination, who do not know my limitless, changeless nature beyond which there is nothing greater, look upon me only as Krishna, as one endowed with a manifest, from as though I am another person who has come down from heaven. In verse number 25-26, in Krishna talks about his nature, which is found in all Upanishads. I know everything and I am not subject to time. People don't recognize me, whereas I know all that has gone before and what comes later. Further in verse number 27, Bhagavan says, even as they are born, they are deluded. They are born with Ichcha, Raga, Dvesha, because of which there is Dvanda, the opposites, and these opposites cause delusion. The delusion does not allow them to see properly. Even the knowledge of the external world is vitiated by these ragas and dveshas, and things are not understood as they are, which is why there is no chance of recognizing Ishvara. In verse number 28, 29, those who are freed from the spell of these opposites, that is, for whom raga, dvesha and papas are neutralized by punya karma, seeks me for real release from the old age and death. People of good actions, firms in their commitment, come to know Brahman, which is Pradyagatma. They also know and understand karma in its entirety, and so they have no more problems. And at last, Bhagavan says that they come to know me only as truth of themselves, but as entire creation. They come to know Ishvara not only as truth, but as themselves, but as the entire creation. All this is centered on the word, the devatas and the rituals. They know me even at the time of death as the efficient and material cause, the one from whom nothing is separate. Those who know me in this particular form are not separate from me. This is Vijnana. This is what is called Vijnana. Jnana Vijnana Yoga. Gyan is not knowing Ishvara as truth of themselves, but as the entire creation. The whole entire creation, everything is Ishvara. There is nothing other than Ishvara. This is Vijnana. Knowing Ishvara as whole, not only oneself. And then begins the 8th chapter, the Akshar Brahma Yoga. This chapter we will begin tomorrow. Akshar Brahma Yoga, imperishable Brahman. The topic is imperishable, which cannot go, which is the only is Brahman is. This we will see tomorrow. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudashyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Om Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishnaya Govindaya.